Pondercast is powered by listeners just like you who have given us a small monthly donation through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/pondercast and make your donation and support an independent podcast. I'm Laurie Brown. Let's Pondercast. Learning how to be alone and be okay with it. Understanding the difference between alone and lonely. Figuring out your own individual perfect mix of solitude and social. That doesn't really happen until you can really stand to be alone with yourself. In a culture that thinks if you want to be alone, you are weird, or there's something wrong, cultivating the ability to enjoy spending time with yourself just isn't a priority. And unfortunately, for many of us, the time in our lives that we find ourselves alone is when we're also dealing with massive heartbreak, end of a relationship, a marriage. It's not a great time to figure out how to be okay with being alone, but that's life. Michele Parisi, creator of Alone, a Love Story, a CBC podcast, is a good person to talk to about this. For 2 seasons, she's been brutally honest about her marriage blowout and the pit she fell into afterwards and is slowly crawling out of. The stories she tells are true, horrific and funny and sad, and she writes beautifully. Alone was the last thing Michele wanted to be. But there she was. Ah, life.
I should sleep, but I don't sleep. I should sleep, but I don't sleep. I pace around my apartment like I'm looking for something I lost. I can't find it, so I wander some more, in and out of rooms, back and forth across the floor, like I'm gathering forensics of my own mysterious existence. I look at old photos. I zoom in on faces, look right into eyes, trace pixelated jawlines with my fingertips. I read and reread old emails and journal entries. I live the past like it's a boulder I swallowed. I should sleep, but I don't sleep. I'm just sitting here thinking about everything I've lost. Love, time, a sense of belonging. The woman I once was, the woman I thought I would be. Now I'm a stranger in my own home, a drifter in my own life, a tourist in this city I was born in, lost and left to wander in, a sad girl in rags.
I'm speaking here with Michele Parisi, and you may have heard her podcast, Alone, a Love Story. It's been through 2 seasons now. The 2nd season has just been released. And I wanted to talk to you, Michele, about being alone.
Yep.
It is the title of your podcast, but there was something that you said early on about being alone in that you had no real experience of being alone. You said that you had not even watched a movie by yourself. And that blew my mind. What did you, how does that happen? You're always with somebody?
No, I never watched a movie alone.
Have you watched a movie alone now?
No, still not. I really enjoy watching movies with people because I like to talk about it after. And so it was hard for me to enjoy it. It's the same thing with eating, which I talk about too in the podcast, where eating is a communal thing to me. It's the place where, like, you know, the tables where all this stuff happens. And so when I eat by myself, like, the food actually just doesn't taste the same to me. I'm just so used to talking and laughing and crying and having an argument and all that being associated with eating food. And same with a movie. Is like a thing you do with somebody or a bunch of people and then you discuss it after.
When your marriage disintegrated and you found yourself on your own, tell me about the role that music played for you.
Well, I'm really glad you asked that because music is a huge, huge, huge part of my life and it always has been. And I found in the very immediate time after I found out my husband was having an affair, I couldn't listen to any music. Like, everything was too painful. Like, I couldn't even choose a song. I'm one of those people that has an iPod because I want to have all 15,000 songs that I want all the time, and I don't want it to be on my phone. I want a separate thing. And anything I chose was like a dagger for some reason, and it really ruined my love of music for a while. And certain songs, like, I just could never listen to. I mean, I talk about in season 2, obviously, What Was Our Wedding Song, which is Perfect Day by Lou Reed, which I love that song, but like, I spent a long time, I could not. I think I say, like, I launched myself across rooms to turn the song off, or I would leave rooms if it came on. And there was like Al Green's, like, Let's Stay Together. Like, if that came on, I would just die and just leave. Like, too bad. What a great, like, it's a beautiful, amazing song. And anything.
But what about songs that, you know, were about heartache or about being lonely or alone?
Yeah, even then, like, it's just, I couldn't. I had a really hard time. And then music I was listening to just before I found out about the affair. So in this, like, time period where something was happening with my husband, but I didn't quite know what. So it was, I can't listen to them now. And I love, like, the album, the Bon Iver album.
Yeah.
Oh. Someday, maybe part of me, part of me. That album, like, I was like, I can't listen to that album, like, because I was listening to it, like, the week that I found out about the affair. Wow. And so, like, it's actually a very visceral feeling for me when I hear his voice, like, am I saying his name?
Bon Iver,
Bon
yeah.
Iver. Like, when I hear his voice, I can't. And there's another band, too, that it's too bad. Shearwater.
Yeah.
I can't. I still can't listen to it because it's like, actually feels like, I don't know. I guess, like, when people have an acid flashback or something, it's like a trauma flashback if I hear that music.
Wow. My marriage fell apart about 14 years ago. And the difference is that I ended the marriage instead of my husband ending the marriage, and I found myself alone. And for me, it was exactly the opposite, because I found that I had this urge to listen to music from right at the beginning, like from about 13 or 14 when I fell in love with music. And I didn't know why, but I had this urge. And I started to go back and listen. And I remembered why I fell in love with the music. And I remembered who I was.
Yeah.
When I was that age. And I remembered, because I had lost all sense of who I was when the marriage fell apart. And it was, for me, it was through that old music that I never listened to anymore. I went back and went, I remember that young girl, and I remember that woman. Music was how I pieced myself together. And I'm really sad to hear that you couldn't use music in the same way.
Well, I did. That was just like the immediate, time. The good thing about music, or the way that I used it, is, I guess because I play guitar, like not very well, but I can play guitar and sing, and that was always like a big part of my life, just for fun. And so one of the things that did come back very strongly in the like probably 6 months after the split, and when I was living on my own and started hanging out with other single people who they didn't have children, and so they had easier lives in a sense. And music came back, like in that way, playing music collectively with others. So just jamming and singing songs. And I got calluses on my fingers again, like when I was 20, 21. And it was so fun.
When you first found yourself alone, it's one thing to learn how to be alone when you're in pretty good shape, like you moved to a new city and you got a new job and things are going really well. It's another thing to find yourself alone for the first time and also have had your entire life blown apart. How do you go about finding the words to explain just how overwhelming and complete that kind of devastation is?
Yeah. I mean, overwhelming and complete is good, because I think it's easy for people to just say, like, okay, get over it or whatever. Like, yeah, people break up all the time or people have affairs. Like, how much can you bellyache? But it was a real traumatic thing for me. And I know there are more traumatic things in the world, definitely, that happen to people. But for me, this was devastating, and being alone was part of the devastation. And how I found the words, I mean, to be honest, the words come out of me all the time. Like I always have a notebook with me. And when I don't, I mean, some of the chapters, some of the vignettes you hear are the vignette called Rings, about I'm on like the streetcar and I see all these diamond rings all the time or whatever. It feels like everyone has an engagement ring. I wrote that in my head as I was feeling it, and then as soon as I got off the subway, I scrambled in my purse, and I was going on a date, so I didn't have my big purse. I had like my date purse or whatever, my dancing purse, as I call it.
Okay.
And so I wrote that whole thing on the back of 6 receipts. I only ever think about them when I'm on public transit. Engagement rings. On a crowded streetcar, they're everywhere. On fingers gripped around poles, tapping on cell phones, or curled around a book. They're diamonds twinkling and taunting me. Oh, there's another one. Look as she absentmindedly twirls it with her left thumb, the way I once did with my own. This girl who looks too young, all edges, all high-pitched complaints as she shout-talks to her friend. For months after the bomb, I would twirl the space where my engagement ring once was. Minutes passing before I'd realized it wasn't even there anymore. It would never be there again. Now it sits in a little box beside my wedding band, both nestled together on soft black cloth, closed away forever. I never wanted a ring, I never imagined owning a diamond or wearing one, never looked at them longingly in a shop window. It just wasn't my thing. But once he gave it to me, that beautiful ring he designed himself, I never took it off. Never. Not till the bitter end. Not even during my pregnancy, until I was so swollen I had no choice but to remove them. The husband used butter to try and get those darn rings off my enormous finger. We killed ourselves laughing there in the kitchen of the house we'd just bought, and teasingly I said, "Couldn't you just have used hand cream like a normal person? Why butter?" "But I love butter," he said, and we laughed some more. I think about his ring, his wedding band, which he also never took off. I think about the day I bought it for him, how I had it inscribed with my nickname for him, my rogue. I know. I think about him touching her face, her body, while wearing the ring I put on his finger on our wedding day. I think of the cool platinum running along her skin, through her hair, touching her in places and in ways I don't want to think about, Places and ways I used to need booze and sleeping pills to eradicate. Rings. They're just objects. I know. They're just symbols. We just give them to one another in front of all our friends and family and in front of God. That's all. We say eternal, and everyone reaches for the Kleenex. But what we mean is, or for as long as I can stand it.
You write very honestly about alcohol. You know, you didn't drink before all of this happened. And then you drank an awful lot.
Yeah. I did. I a lot every single day for a year or more, maybe a year at least. I think the reason I can talk about it so honestly is because it didn't last. Like it was a very specific period of my life. And so I can talk about it now pretty easily because I didn't stay there. And I wasn't there before, ever. Because alcoholism is like a real issue for a lot of people, and it's a issue that lasts a long time or forever for some people. For me, for whatever reason, I started to do a whole bunch of things that I had never done. And so there's a period of time. That's why I can talk so openly about sex also, I think. Or specifically in the podcast, sex with strangers, sex where I didn't feel anything or care. Because at that time, I felt dead inside and I didn't care about myself. It sounds so melodramatic or, I don't know, but I really feel like everything I thought was real was suddenly not real. And it's not even just about sexual jealousy or, people have affairs and we're all very blasé about affairs. And I don't know, for whatever reason, that broke me in a very profound way. I don't know. I started drinking and smoking. I never smoked either. I was 37 years old. Like, those are two stupid things to start doing. And then I started just having random sex with people, which I had also never done, ever. People always say, like, oh, single and dating again. And I'm like, no, for the first time. Like, I have never, and I say it, right? Like, I never went on a blind date, or I never picked up a person in a bar or got someone's phone number or had a one-night stand. That was not my understanding of love and sex. Sex was always, always, always tied to love. I had only had sex with people that were in love with me, and I was in love with them, and we were in long-term relationships. And then I broke. Something broke, and I didn't care. But it didn't last forever.
But maybe that's not broken, because I was the same way feeling about sex. Like, I met my husband when I was 19.
Yeah.
And then when we broke up, I remember my therapist said something to me. She said, well, you're probably going to have another relationship almost immediately. You're going to find somebody almost immediately. And then she said, or you're going to have lots and lots and lots of partners. And I was shocked when she said that. I thought, what? Yeah. That's not me. But that was me. And maybe it's because we never did that right at the beginning of our sexual lives, when most other people do that.
Oh, yeah. I always say I had the 20s I never had, like, basically in my late 30s, like almost all around 40 years old, almost 40 years old is when I had, like, my 20s. And, a lot of it was it was liberating, it was fun. I met some great people, but mostly, like, when I think about it now, or even when I was recording this season 2, where I talk a lot about the sex part of it, with sex with strangers, it's like another person. Like, I can't even remember being that person, even though it was 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Because I just can't even imagine that that's how I was. And somebody asked me, but are you glad you got that chance? And actually, my answer is still no. I would still take any day to be in a long-term, committed relationship. I would still choose that any day over, whatever, the parade of 26-year-olds.
Yeah.
I think that, sex was a balm, basically. Sex was like a little Band-Aid. It was a temporary intimacy, right? It gave me the whatever chemical feelings of intimacy without really actually being intimate, obviously. And that's all I wanted, because I didn't want to get close to anybody to hurt me again or to feel rejected. But then, after a while, that's tiring. It was for me. And I did want more. I should sleep, but I don't sleep. I stand on the balcony and stare out into the night. I have so much to say and no one to say it to. So much to give, but in giving it, I've been told it's too much. Too much. Always too much. Or else, not enough. But then I get now, I'm pretty good being alone now, and I love going home now. It took me a long time to go home, but I love it. But sometimes I still think, what if that was it? What if the husband was it? You know what I mean? What if that was just my one chance?
How do you feel about that?
That's a real bummer to me. But, I know so many women, so many of my friends they never even had that. And, they're 38 or 39, and they thought that they would have children by now, or they thought, you think that these things are going to happen if it's what you want. And I think, well, at least I loved and lost, but at least I was loved. Not only did I love, but I was loved for a time. And then that love still exists very strong in its own weird way. And then we have a daughter, obviously. I just never imagined myself being alone this long. Special to me about that. I don't know. Maybe it'll happen.
Well, you never know when it's going to happen, right? I was alone for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I had come to the point where I thought, I am going to stay alone.
Yeah.
And I had given up completely on the idea of a partner.
Yeah.
And I had finally accepted that this is the way it was going to be, and I wasn't going to have a partner. And I got a partner. And it felt like there was this real strange thing about I had to get to a point where I accepted all of that before it could happen.
Yeah, which is what people say.
Yeah.
A thing that a lot of people have said to me, I was like, you just have to learn to love to be alone. You just have to learn to love yourself, is sometimes what people say. And I say, look, I have no problem loving myself. Mm-hmm. I love myself. I think I'm great. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't have any issue. I have issues, but I don't have issues with who I am in general.
Or feelings of being unlovable.
Yeah. Or thinking yeah. Sometimes I have oh God, I'm 43. I'm old now, and I'm overweight again, and now everybody, if they listen to this podcast, knows I have MS and I have a kid and an ex-husband. Who the hell would want to date me? And sometimes I do think that still, but at the same time, but it doesn't make me love myself less. I don't have any trouble knowing that I'm fucking great. But that took me a while to get there too, right?
Oh man. Yeah. And
or just to say it, even, because we're taught not to say that. Mm-hmm. But I want to own it. So some people would say, yeah, you have to learn to love yourself. And I would say, yeah, I know. And other people say, you have to just learn to love to be alone. And I would always counter that. Like, really, do I have to love it? Can I accept it? Can I get better at it? But do I have to love it? I really argued against that for a long time. But it's actually started to happen, and it happened this year.
What did that look like for you?
It looked like, to me, I had some interesting conversations with, I met the neighbor that lives above me in my apartment building. And she and I would have tea and talk about things. And she did my I Chi. Is that how you say it?
I Ching?
I Ching once. And she didn't know a lot about what was happening in my life yet. And it was basically, she said, oh, let go. It's all about letting go. Everything I cast kept telling her to tell me to let go. Right? And then as I got to know her more, we would talk about all these things. And then she said, I just got to this point, and she's older than me, where I just think this year it's all about fuck it. And I said, oh my gosh, I love that. And so that was in January of 2018. And now, ever since then, I've just been like, fuck it. This is the year of fuck it. Where I just stopped doing things because I think it would please other people, or like because it's like what my family wants, or because I didn't want to lose a friendship, or I didn't want to rock a boat, or I didn't want to make managers upset. I just said, fuck it. And it has been an amazing few months for me. I don't know why, but this is what happened now. And that's basically, I can go home all the time now. I don't mind. I want to go home. Sometimes people are like, come out and do this. And I think, actually, I want to go home.
Oh my God, you're learning to be alone.
Yeah. And then I just 2 weeks ago went on a vacation by myself, which is crazy. So I've traveled a lot on my, and I traveled alone, the traveling part, but then I would always be like meeting up with someone or staying with someone there, or like knowing a person in the place I was going. But I went on a trip, I chose a short trip on purpose, 4 nights, because I didn't think I could do more than that all by myself. And in the past, I would have waited, or I would have hemmed and hawed, or I would have said like, oh, none of my friends can go with me, or why would I go on a vacation without a boyfriend? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't imagine being in a nice tropical place and in a hotel room and not having sex. Like, that seems like a waste of money to me. That's how I used to think. I'm not kidding you. As an honest, And I met people on the plane who then after were like, gave me their emails and their phone numbers. And I'm like, if you're having a hard time on your own, like just call us and we'll send a car to come get you. They were these like rich Albertans. They were super cool. And then someone I knew kind of that had met once before was in Puerto Vallarta, which is where I was. And he said, come to this bar, we're all here. And then I met all of his friends. And then I ended up just meeting people, and I spent all the days by myself because I wanted to. I was tired. And they would say, come to the beach or we're all here. And then actually I was like, no, I'll meet you guys tonight. And so I spent all days by myself and night times hanging out with, this group of gay guys. And it was amazing. That sounds
perfect. That sounds really good.
It was perfect. It was so good because I just wanted to relax and feel good and not feel bad. And I didn't cry for 5 days straight. I went on vacation. I did not cry. I guess now I have to watch a movie by myself.
It's called The Notebook. Go for it.
Oh, really?
If you had advice for people who didn't want to be alone and find themselves alone and in a pit at the same time, what would your advice be?
I mean, I feel like the times that I was in the pit, like when I was down the well, you need to go there. Like you have to allow yourself to go there, but you have to know that you can get out. There's got to be like the rope in the well with you, So if you need it, you can climb out. And that rope, I guess, though, is not necessarily other people. It's still you. So it's probably old you is the rope. And you have to always remember while you're down there that you weren't always down there. Because that's the thing. Like, you can be down there and forget that there was anything but the well. That you could think this was it. This is how I've always been, and this is where I'll always be. And I think that's, and then that's another thing. Then maybe that's like real depression and all that kind of stuff where people cannot get out of. You need an escape route or a plan. And that plan has to be old you, or I don't know. If old you was somebody that could help you get out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I remember that because I felt that the old me, the 18-year-old me, the 21-year-old me, that was the thing that got me out. Was remembering who I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned about myself that was different than old me was to accept people's help. Mm-hmm. And not only that, is to ask for people's help.
That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. So that was
independent young woman.
Yeah. Like, I just never did that. You know what I mean? Everything I've gotten in my life I got it myself. And now I shout it out at people all the time. Like, I basically force people who are going through hard times to accept because I'm like, no, I know because I was there. Mm-hmm. You need to say it's okay because your friends are your lifeline.
In writing about love and thinking about love, has something changed about the way you feel about love?
I don't think so. I think I am a romantic of the highest order. Love, I still believe in love. I really do. I really, really, really do. And even if it never happens for me again in that same wonderful, reciprocal way, that's okay. But here's the thing. Love is strange and wonderful, and you can't choose it. You can choose to not see it or feel it when it's there with you, but you can't choose it out of existence. Love floods you like a high beam on a dark country road. Love is a defender that sometimes gets in your way. Love shoots you up in the sky like a corner store firework, cheap but exciting. Love sticks to you like gum on the bottom of your shoe or parsley in your teeth. Love is a flood that cannot be stopped, no matter how many sandbags you put out. You can't prepare. You can only act. Action is the antidote to anxiety. Certainty is a myth. So you may as well let that light flow right into you, right through you, and experience it now, even if it's only temporary. Even if it's just in knowing that there's no real way of knowing. Love is at ease with itself, man. It doesn't look before it leaps. It just leaps. It just does.
If there is something that I think is good about all of this, is that I see you as a journalist moving into a realm where what you do is who you are.
Yeah. It is a luxury and it is a privilege, but I also earned it, I think. I have worked as a journalist for 22 years. I've worked hard and long. All my adult life at CBC, all of it. Every moment of my adult life has been in that one building. And I'm good at what I do. I'm good at making stories. I'm good at writing. And so, and I'm an observer. And yeah, I mean, it's so a luxury. Like, I feel like every moment that I went into work for those 3 months, let's say, that we made season 2, just the two of us, me and Veronica Simmons, every day we would just look at each other and go like, we're just making art all day. It's awesome.
Well, I'm glad you're telling your own story. I'm sorry that the story is... But you're good at writing from the pit, and I think that a lot of people need to know about what that feels like and what it sounds like.
I want to write from the pit because so many people needed me to say these things. And I know that only because I get all these emails and messages and letters like every single day since September from all over the world, where people are, and 95% of them start with the words, thank you. So I'm saving them all for her when she hates me, my daughter.
You're building your defense strategy now. That is so wise.
I have all the press clippings and all I do. I made a giant document because like, this may never happen again for me. This might be the peak of my career and I want to like savor it and I don't want to diminish it. That's why I'm so like, you know what? I earned it. And yes, I am a good writer. Like these are new things for me, especially as a woman, to just say, no, you know what? I'm good at this. I didn't know I was a writer. I never tried to, I didn't, you know what I mean? But hey, it turns out I can write. Great. Like awesome. And people are responding to that. So I want to savor it and I want to save it just in case my daughter hates me later.
You know what? Even if you didn't do this, there'll be a time when your daughter will hate you anyway. So there you go.
It's coming soon, I'm sure.
Michele, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. This was fun.